Hi, and welcome to my show. I'm Catherine Babick, and this is a retrospective of my art for over the last 50 years. So the piece in this show is called Time Flies When You're Creating. This particular piece called Time Flies was created for a show here at the gallery, which is the Georgina Arts Centre Gallery in Sutton. And when you created the piece, you had to also write a poem that went with it, or pick one. I did write my own poem, and the piece itself is an acrylic painting, and of course I have some collage on there with the watches and the butterflies. So it does mean a lot to me because I do enjoy writing poetry. My family was shocked to find out that I did that. The piece beside it is called Butterfly Kisses, and is done with acrylic and a bit of mixed media, and it has a nice soft sheen on it because it's coated with the polymer glaze on top. The one on top has a rough background, and it's called The Gathering, and it also has a collage effect on it. These two pieces are called The Perfect Pair. They're done with acrylic, and the rough textures on them are all done with acrylic, different mediums in modeling gels. The design is a bit of Zentangle, which is a drawing technique, and I have a thing for peacocks, and I just think they are the perfect pair. The faces that are to the left are just something whimsical. I guess I saw Frozen and decided I wanted to make something that represented the girls hiding. And the biggest one, I got even more creative by deciding to add some branches that are three-dimensional and stick out from the painting. So I had a lot of fun, although a lot of work, trying to get them to fit in. And it's quite different. As I say, I like to create. The three pieces opposite me are all done with an intuitive watercolor technique. I had a mentor, Dorothy Clark McClure, who taught for me, and I learned quite a bit from her over the years. And she taught here at the gallery when it first opened, and the School of Fine Arts. And you don't draw anything on the intuitive painting. You mix colors using only 3 colors and the white of the paper, and you turn around and you find or objects from it. So some people would maybe not find anything, other people you find it 4 years later. This lovely little dancer, the ballerina, is made out of Paverpol, which is a polymer medium, and that's how she gets stiff. Her body is made out of wire and covered with clay and Paverpol. This piece here is called Golden Greed. It also was created for the same show that was here for the gallery, and you had to write a poem. So my poem called Golden Greed is all about the Midas touch. And I think that the little statue, which is a clay sculpture of hands, fits perfectly in with the 3 pieces. It's called Gimme, Gimme, Gimme. These 2 ladies, one expecting and one that already has one, is just called a lady with a baby and lady expecting. Now they are both Paverpol figurines made with t-shirts and wire. The tulips are made out of silk, and they must be framed to protect them, where the iris is watercolor. Now, this Brilliant Lilies is also another silk painting. I love the vibrant colors you can get with silk, but it's a lot of work and very hard to control. It must be steamed before it's framed to set the colors. The Sunflowers is another silk piece. And the Precious Poppies, they are a watercolor. I don't do an awful lot of abstract, but these 2 pieces are called Joined, and they are an acrylic abstract. The one above it is also acrylic, with a little tiny bit of mixed medium in by the stamens.
And why did you create abstract? What
Why?
made you, yes.
I decided I would try my hand at abstract because it seemed everybody was into it. And it just was something I'd never really done before. Now I do play around with it a little
Do you
bit
enjoy
more
it?
than before.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
These three little pieces, or two pieces, I have done for my class. One is acrylic and one watercolor. And what I have created here is two pieces from an antique photo of me when I was about 2, where there was no color, to show the class that you can add color and just create your own picture, even from a black and white. Right for the picking, this little tomato piece was when the mediums first started coming out, and the tomatoes are actually 3-dimensional and stick out from the painting. The middle one here, called Rounded, the Great Escape, was done for a piece here at the gallery, and it got an honorable mention. And because it just reminded me of how the kids would sneak out at night, and we had to do something that was a great escape. So the top piece is a dimensional piece. It's acrylic, but the hinges are made out of watercolor paper and glued on, and the flowers and the stones have some modeling clay medium from the acrylic family. This piece is of Lake Louise, which was done, I haven't been there, but from my son's photos when he went out there when he was younger. And it's always a place I wanted to go to, and this is an oil. I learned to paint in oil originally from a lady that taught me here in Sutton, Mrs. Cooper, and also from different teachers at night school. Ted Leonard, who taught at the high school here, painted the icebreakers for the Canadian government, and some of his paintings were in the different government offices, so I had some very good teachers. But I found when you traveled, oil does not travel well. The white from oil takes months to dry. So the mountains wouldn't have been dry for 2 or 3 months, so I learned then how to paint in acrylic. The woodland trilliums that are up here are another 3-dimensional piece. I really like to sculpt, and now that they have the mediums and I can put it into my paintings and know that they will be still solid, makes it much more interesting for me. So the birches are acrylic on wood, and the other items here, most are ceramic sculptures, except for the 2 nuthatches, which are wood. Now the little piece that is called Nature's Picks was from a project that I was doing when I did the hands, gimme gimme, and it blew up. And I ended up with 3 fingers and didn't know what to do with them. So I created Nature's Picks. I have a sense of humor in my work, and I like to do different things like that. The pieces here are watercolor on Golden Pond. I really do like sunsets. The one next to it is Lake Simcoe sunset from down in Keswick. And this must be how I painted a couple of fire pictures in watercolor after watching some of the TV shows of the forest fires that there were, because I feel it must be hell for the animals to be caught in there and not be able to escape. The Midnight on the Lake is a watercolor, and this piece here is from a Muskoka area, and it also is a watercolor. This is a Lake Simcoe picture that I painted from a photograph that I took, and it was a stormy day. And this is the Gravenhurst Lighthouse. Apparently there's a new one, but this was done before the old one either was damaged or burned. I'm not sure which happened to it, but they did say that it's been replaced. This barn is from up in Halliburton. I took a lot of courses at the school of Halliburton School of Fine Art up there over the years from some fabulous painters. So I was out on a paint out, and that's one of the barns in the area. So I have a horse here that is a ceramic horse. I have a kiln, and I loved having ceramics. I used to have a small ceramic shop at one time, and I'm still painting up stuff that I did from then, although my kiln's not hooked up anymore. Now these 3 pieces are all watercolors. As I said, I enjoy sunsets in the Muskoka Halliburton area. This is a watercolor, but it is put over top of a canvas and treated with a polymer coating so that it doesn't have to be framed. And this one is the back of a house in Sutton on Northwood. A friend, she became a friend, lived there, and this was her lookout over her backyard in the winter time. And the little nuthatch here is a wood carving. I learned wood carving and took wood carving almost 20 years with Wendy Michaels, who was an award-winning carver. And one of my first nuthatches won at the Sportsman Show in Toronto for amateur. This piece is called Knee Deep. It's one that I painted one year when the snow was so bad, a couple of years ago. I'm not a fan of cold snow. This piece is called Winter White, and it's done from Bark Lake. A group of us artists from the ECOA went up there in the winter months, -10, and I painted in the studio looking out the window. But it is also a watercolor. Now these pieces are a little bit of the acrylic pouring technique that people were getting into. I seem to do things before it actually takes off. This piece here with skins, and you manipulate and pour the acrylic on a piece of clear plastic, and then you pull them off. And that's how I created 90% of this painting. So it's a little bit tricky and a little bit different. The other 3 were poured techniques. Some have a little bit of medium in them, some have silver, and I love the ocean and I love sea creatures. I was on a cruise ship and I met Wyland and took a little bit of a workshop with them and watched him paint every day doing his demos, and came home and decided I like the sea. Mermaids that are here are done with powder paw and accessories. The fish was done for the Perch Festival, and one of the first ones that was ever 3-dimensional. And I just love playing around with different things. Their bodies, of course, are wire and t-shirts. The Purdy and Patty and Purdy fish are puffer fish. I took a picture down at Ripley's, not this one, but the one in Georgia, and found them fascinating and decided I was going to write my grandchildren a storybook. So I'm still working on that. They'll probably be 20 by the time it's finished. This is an acrylic on watercolor paper, that's why it's framed, and it's called Dare to Be Different. And as I say, a little bit of my sense of humor coming out on there. This one here is also called Hide and Seek Clownfish. That's another skin piece. All the little things that are over top of the fish and some that are wrapped around the edges were done with skins, acrylic skins. This is a clay sculpture. It's called Sittin' and Chittin' because the seagulls made such a mess. I saw the birds on one of my trips sitting on a rock and took a picture. The little loon here was one that recently did not have a base, but for the show I decided it was time after 20-something years to put him in his water bath, and Wendy taught us how to do all this, and also the puffin. They're both carved out of wood. Turtles are silk. As I said, I got into under the sea and the water, and I was in Mexico and got taken one time to a place where they released the turtles and the baby turtles, and I found it absolutely so interesting to see them come up out of the ground. And it was very interesting because as they didn't let us put them out in the ocean till after the sun went down so the birds would meet them. So we did manage to get them mostly all out there. The other one is maintenance free. Looks like a little fish aquarium, but you don't have to feed them or clean them, and it's also silk. Now, this one is called Paradox. It's the great question, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Even the egg is not a real egg. I made that out of a powder pall, wrapping up paper and squishing it and then covering it with t-shirt. The basket is wire and the chicken is wire and t-shirts. As I said, my fascination with the sea, I don't particularly like sharks, but they do interest a lot of people. And I've painted quite a few little bits of sharks. I have a huge acrylic one on the go at home. And the other one is a little silk one, and it's called Whale of a Tale. This piece is called Herring Looking for Dinner. I try to do a lot of experimentation, and although the herring can go out in the garden by himself with the bulrushes, I needed a base for him because where I had him at home was not completely exposed outdoors. So the bottom is made with 5 to 10 cans of spray foam, some polymer clear epoxy to make the little fish being seen on the bottom. This piece was done in one of my first classes with Dorothy Clark McClure. We had to put a picture of ourselves in the middle, and then we had to put it backwards and put the paints down and manipulate them and try and find out what we saw. And for some reason, to me, it was Da Vinci. I'm not reincarnated Da Vinci or anything. It's just that he really inspired me. I went to Europe years ago and saw some of his work. And the eagle, she said, was supposed to be something that was looking out over me. So she used to have books called Animal Speaks and the Viking ruins, and she used those in her classes. This piece here called Birds of a Feather is one of the intuitive pieces. I don't try many full sheets. It's a lot harder to find things and to work them up. But once you find one bird, which was the toucan, you just seem to find the rest, they come out. Some people enjoy this work and others find it hard to comprehend. It's as close to abstract as I used to do. Now, Dorothy said she never found flowers, but I find tons of them. I love to garden, and so all of these are intuitive pieces, but they're all in my floral series. As I said, I have a bit of a weird sense of humor. This one here is Mystical Dragons. I found a dragon. I might have been talking to a child about dragons in one of the classes, and then you seem to walk by a painting and it speaks to you. The fish up here is called Goldfish, and it's also intuitive. Now, the intuitive process, believe it or not, is 3 colors on these paintings, no more than 3. They're outlined in either gold or silver ink or pen. It's garden pond visitors, where the turtles are coming into the pond, and another little floral. This one here I call Sleeping Beauty, and it just, as I say, I can't tell you why. You just find things, the mood, your frame of mind, once you've dreamt on. We play music when doing this class, both just working on the blank piece of paper, and then afterwards there's always music and people talk, and somebody, if it's a group effort, they will come up and say, oh, I see this. But the idea is to do what you see, not what other people see. This one here I did years ago, and sometimes you go through a hard part in your life, and this to me was this very Christian, religious sort of thing, even though it's more of a native. Again here, this one I called Hark the Child Arrives. Might have been around Christmas. And I have no clue where I found a giraffe in my garden, because I really never have, but I do have a 6-foot paper mache giraffe at home called Jeffrey. The top one's called Animals and Friends, and it's just a few little faces of animals I found in there and 1 or 2 people's sort of heads. And this one's called The Protector. And as I say, they can be outlined in darker colors. This one's called In the Beginning. These 2 pieces are done with Zentangle on paper. So you draw them in pencil, and then afterwards you shade them in pencil and go over them with ink. And that is not me. I just took a picture of a lady, any lady, took her clothes off, so that's what it looks like. I had a bit of fun with where I did the Zentangle, as you can see. And this one is called, I'm sorry, I can't remember, I have to look, Tattooed, and the other one is called Inked. This is some of my sculpture, and the little Russian ballet tryouts was a piece I thought was kind of funny, to make her an old Russian lady wanting to fulfill her dream of dancing in the Russian ballet. And this little skier was the second in the series that I was doing, and he was trying out for the Olympics. The middle one was just an inspiration, and I called it So they're clay. And this cute little piece here is my finger bowl. And I usually at Halloween have it by the front door with candies and tell the kids to take candy, and they sort of jump back. This sculpture also is clay, and it's called Helping Hand. And then the rest are my miniature paintings. I also love miniatures, and I have a couple of rooms which I just couldn't bring up and fit in here that are all done of babies' bedrooms. And at one time I had made a tree, and so some of them are great for doll houses, or to start your first art collection very reasonable. This is an oil. It's called Little Picassos. It was done from a picture I took up at the Pioneer Village, and that's the wall of the schoolhouse. It was done at a storybook time, which they don't have that festival anymore. But it was the first picture that I used on my School of Fine Arts when I was bringing people here before the gallery opened for the 2 or 3 years. And it's one of my favorite pieces. This little piece is called When I Win the Lottery, I'm Still Dreaming. She's created with Paverpal wire, t-shirt, a bit of cardboard, and a little bit of pine that she's sitting on. The money is money that I shrunk. I don't think I can get into trouble for shrinking it that small. It's all coated with Paverpal and floats on the wire that's here. These are a couple of poems that I have written about. The Seasons is one that I entered last year into the gardeners competition and won a second prize on. And Who's Looking at Me is all about when you look in the mirror at the stage of life and realize how much you've been rearranged and changed. So those are things that I continually work at. If you'd like to see how I do a bit of the intuitive, I have a little piece here to show you. This is one that is a picture of an unfinished piece. And you can see what it looks like when you first put down the painting and manipulate it, and you end up with this. And then this is what it looks like when you finish doing the piece. I'm hoping that we can get an idea of what it looks like with the plastic, so that you can see where I find faces and then I work it up, but still only with the same 3 colors. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed the show. These are a couple of poems that I have written about. The Seasons is one that I entered last year into the gardeners competition and won a second prize on. And Who's Looking at Me is all about when you look in the mirror at the stage of life and realize how much you've been rearranged and changed. So those are things that I continually work at. If you'd like to see how I do a bit of the intuitive, I have a little piece here to show you. This is one that is a picture of an unfinished piece. And you can see what it looks like when you first put down the painting and manipulate it, and you end up with this. And then this is what it looks like when you finish doing the piece. I'm hoping that we can get an idea of what it looks like with the plastic, so that you can see where I find faces and then I work it up, but still only with the same 3 colors. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed the show.